When the Nazis would come, the people in hiding had to turn around their mattresses during the night, because the Nazis would count the warm mattresses. And when you're thinking there are only 3 people living here, and you count 10 warm mattresses, where are the other 7? So they had to think about a lot of things. When you wake up in the middle of the night, you are sleepy, and you have to think about so many things. For instance, the room you were in at first, it was the dining room. When people were eating soup, with 10 of them, the alarm bell would sound. You had to put back the soup into the boil and pick up the spoon and all their other belongings and rush up into the hiding place. And they practiced so often that they managed to get into the hiding place in 70 seconds only. Because at first it took them more than 4 minutes, but they practiced and practiced, and it was so good that they practiced, because this place was betrayed. On a Monday, the 28th of February 1944, a strange man knocked on the door you came in before, and he stood there and he said, I want to speak to Corrie ten Boom face to face, in person. But Corrie was very ill that day. She was in her bed with very high fever, and this man said, no, I won't go away, I have to speak to her. And then Corrie came downstairs and she spoke to this man. And this man told a very sad story, and maybe because of her fever, or because this man was a very good liar, Corrie didn't recognize him as a betrayer. And this man told the story, my wife has been arrested, she was helping Jewish people, and now she's in prison, and I can buy her free for 600 guilders. Please give me 600 guilders. And Corrie always wanted to help people, said, well, 600 guilders is a lot of money. Please come back in 2 hours, and then I will collect the money, and I will give it to you. So this man went away. Corrie went to the shop. She took all the money from the shop, from her own savings, and from some friends, and then she had the 600 guilders together. She went back to bed. This man came back, but he didn't come alone. All of a sudden, a few cars appeared, and it was very strange, because during the war, the Dutch didn't have any cars anymore. They were all confiscated by the Nazis. So that was very alarming, all of a sudden, these cars. So Betsy pushed the alarm button, and at that moment, 6 people were living in hiding here. 4 Jewish people, 2 Jewish women, 2 Jewish men, and 2 people from the underground organization. And they rushed into the hiding place just in time, because Corrie described it in one of her books. She was laying in bed when she heard the alarm bell ring, and she was thinking to herself, that's strange, I didn't push the button. So then she thought, oh my God, this time it's for real. And then all of a sudden, the door was opened, and the 6 people in hiding rushed beside her bed into the hiding place, and she quickly helped them, and I will show you, we go there in a few minutes. And then she went back to bed again, just in time. The door opened again, and this Nazi officer bursted in, where are the Jews? And then the whole ten Boom family, there were about altogether 30 people were arrested, because the prayer group to pray for the Jewish people was still going on, and also another few visitors were here, so 30 people were arrested, and they were taken to the police station. And the people in the hiding place were having a very anxious time, of course. They heard the family being taken away, but the biggest problem was they didn't have any water, because they forgot during these drills and exercises, they forgot to take in fresh water. So there was no water at all. They were cramped up like this, and they didn't know if they ever could be free again, because this house was armed with 2 armed guards. So they couldn't get out. And then a long waiting. They had to wait for a very long time. And in the meantime, the ten Booms and the others were taken to the police station, and Corrie ten Boom met a man, a policeman, 12 years after the war. He was on duty that day when the family were brought in, and he said, well, I will never forget that day, because normally when people are arrested, they are panicking, there is chaos, what will happen to us, but not the ten Booms. They had to sit down on mattresses, And Casper ten Boom started to read Psalm 91 from the Bible, which is very central to the ten Boom family, and it goes something like, "He who dwells in the hiding place of the Most High will abide under the shadow of the Almighty Lord. And I say to my Lord, you're my refuge and my strength, and I will trust in you." And this policeman, he said, well, I always remember that day, because they were so, they trusted in the Lord. Whatever would happen, they were calm and quiet. But the worst was yet to come, because from there on, they were all being transported to a prison in Scheveningen, the Oranje Hotel, which wasn't, of course, a hotel, but the nickname of the prison. And they were placed in different prison cells. And after 10 days, Father Casper died. And his daughters only found out weeks later that the beloved father had passed away. So they were feeling very sad. But they took all the responsibility, because they didn't find the people in the hiding place, but they found a lot of ration cards. During the war, you could only buy clothes and food by these little coupons, ration cards, and they found in one of the stairs, I will show you, about 100 of them. And they suspected a whole underground organization, and they were right, but they couldn't prove it. So they arrested all of them, but Corrie and Betsy took all the blame, and they said the others have nothing to do with it, and they were released, one after another. Not Corrie and Betsy, they had to stay for about a couple of weeks, and then they were being transported to Kamp Vught, which is a kind of a concentration camp more in the south of Holland. They had to work and stay there for 3 months, and then the worst came. They were transported to Ravensbrück concentration camp, which was a very it was a working camp for women, and during the war more than 90,000 women died there. Some say more than 69,000, others 92,000. More than 90,000 women died, and it was awful. There were gas chambers, and Corrie and Betsy said to each other, how can we survive in such a place? And she called it in one of her books, The Hell on Earth. How can we survive? How do you live in such a place? And then Betsy said, Corrie, it says in our Bible, we have to thank and praise the Lord under every circumstance, also under bad circumstances. And then Corrie at first said, well, I cannot see anything here I can thank the Lord for. But Betsy said, well, Corrie, we're still together. Whole families are being torn apart, men to that side, women to that side, but they were still together. So they started to praise and thank the Lord for that. They also started to pray for the very cruel SS Nazi guards, because it also said in the Bible, we have to pray for those who are persecuting us, we have to pray for our enemies. So that was their philosophy. Whatever happens, we trust in the Lord and He will help us. But Betsy, unfortunately, she was getting weaker and weaker, and there was almost no food, and she was given a little red card. And then they didn't know what that meant at first, but they soon found out that as soon new prisoners were brought into the camp, all the women with the little red cards were being sent to the gas chamber. So Betsy knew, sooner or later I'm going to die. And but she said, when there is no pit so deep, but God's love is deeper still, and His eternal arms are carrying us through, no matter what happened. And she trusted in the Lord, even when she had to face death. Well, Betsy died, thank God not in a gas chamber, but in the hospital of the concentration camp. And shortly before she died, she told Corrie 3 important things. She said, Corrie, before the end of the year, it was then December 1944, we both will be released, we will be free from this place, and then we have to travel all around the world and tell the people what we have experienced here. And they will listen to us because we were here. And we have to tell the people that there is no pit so deep, or God's love is deeper still. And we also have to establish a kind of houses where traumatized people from the war can be helped, can be treated. And well, she told Corrie a lot of things. And these 3 things happened, one could say, because before the end of the year, the 30th of December Corrie all of a sudden was released. She was standing outside of the gates of the concentration camp. Betsy, of course, was freed in another way. She was freed from her earthly pains, and she was in heaven with her beloved Lord. But Corrie all of a sudden stood there, not understanding why she was all of a sudden free. She went back after the war, 1954 or 56, back to Ravensbrück concentration camp, and she had a look in these administrative books, and she found out that her name and her age, she was then 52 years old, were written down on the wrong page, because a week later all women of 50 years and older were sent to the gas chambers. And normally she would be one of them. But because of an administrative error, and Corrie called it a miracle of her Lord, she was all of a sudden released. And then she came back here, but I will tell you about that later. Let's have a look at the